Well, there are three broad comments which I have. I think there's an important issue which you have raised. First and foremost, how to reduce the vulnerability of agriculture to the vagaries of nature. Now, for one thing, I think you have to obviously dramatically improve the irrigated areas under agriculture. You have to take a whole lot of other concomitant measures to improve agricultural productivity, which continues to be rather poor in relation to, for instance, other emerging markets, particularly China. Particularly when it comes to rice productivity, we are significantly lower. So, reduce the vulnerability of agriculture to uncertainties of nature. This, of course, also means alteration of farming practices and readaptation of farming practices to the changing weather patterns, for instance, and moving away, for instance, from a cereal-based economy into an economy which places greater emphasis on fruits and vegetables and so on. So, this is one dimension. But you, of course, raised another very important point, and that was that considering the fact that a very large percentage of the Indian population continues to derive its livelihood from agriculture, what does one do to ensure that they are not so vulnerable? Now, clearly the present situation is untenable, because whereas the contribution of agriculture to the GDP has come down rather substantially to what is no more than about 12 to 14%, the number of people, as you rightly point out, who are living in agriculture is somewhere, the estimates vary, some say 50, others say about 55% or so. So, clearly this is an unsustainable situation. So, how to build livelihood patterns and employment outside agriculture, which will really enable them to seek employment opportunities elsewhere. For that, I think the two important strategies is job creation, which is where the manufacturing sector kicks in, and how to create manufacturing hubs, how to really allow manufacturing sector to have a far greater contribution to the GDP, and for manufacturing sector to become the job creators, and how to have a more orderly urbanization pattern in which you can give housing conditions linked with the manufacturing sector, where the number of people living in agriculture comes down rather significantly. India has lagged behind on urbanization very substantially, so has it lagged behind on manufacturing. So, I think that the way forward is manufacturing and orderly urbanization.
And both of these issues have been sort of tackled by the government, and work is on in earnest in both areas. However, for whatever, perhaps it cannot be speeded up more than this, but it's really in some ways too little too late, isn't it?
Well, let's look at a couple of problems. You know, there are legacy issues which this government has to deal with.
Yeah. No,
and
I'm
that,
saying, okay, let's forget government. I'm saying as a country today.
Well, the country has legacy issues. If it has lost time, it needs to speed up to grasp the limited opportunities which are there. But there are some new opportunities which have emerged. These opportunities are, which didn't exist 10 years ago, as wage rates in China have begun to really go up, as other conditions have deteriorated. A large number of manufacturing industry in China is looking for alternative destinations. India obviously provides a huge opportunity in terms of market and in terms of being able to take over from where China really leaves off. And because we have the competitive factor advantages, if we begin to have a regulatory structure, we have begun tweaking our labor laws, we have begun to give flexibility to state governments to have a labor legislation, which is an enabling kind of a thing. If we combine therefore for some of these initiatives, we can grasp the newer emerging opportunities, even though we may have lost a lot of time in the past.
Right. So, that's manufacturing, right? So, what about creating the sense of, I mean, you talked about urbanization and that being a sort of absorber of labor and movement from or migration from the countryside. Is that something that, again, while we may have a 100 cities smart plan, we've generally focused on urbanization, again, are we sort of running behind time there?
We are, and look at the land bill. I mean, I think the whole conundrum of a land bill, of course, we need to have a consensus on it. You cannot have an important legislation on land, and the government is the first one to recognize the need for a wider national consensus, because this is pro-farmer, this is pro-employment, this is in terms of all the virtuous circles, pro-manufacturing, it's pro-orderly urbanization, it is in terms of reducing the pressure of people living on agriculture rather substantially, who are looking for alternative employment opportunities. So, I just mentioned one thing, that for instance, the impending passage of land legislation based on a wider political consensus. Now, whether it is this bill or it is in terms of another revised bill, these are options which the government is closely considering. But I certainly believe that in order to have orderly urbanization, of course, you need to go beyond land, but you need to have all those virtuous circles which will really 100 smart cities you mentioned. But I think orderly urbanization is a challenge with which we have lagged behind and which we need to grasp.
Right. So time seems to be the only factor, right? Because I mean, most decisions and most actions.
By the way, time is an important, very, very important factor, because one of the things which you recognize is that the challenge of time is such because the pattern of economic activity is also undergoing change. As the world comes to deal with aging population and in terms of the pressures of rising wage rates, robotization is taking place, which will render labor permanently surplus, and we need to grasp therefore the opportunity while we are still in a position to garner the comparative factor advantages.
Is this an opportunity? You know, I talk to a lot of CEOs of large manufacturing companies. Most manufacturing companies are at 60–70% of peak capacity that was hit in 2012, right? So even to attain peak capacity today will take another year and a half. And we are talking about another sort of manufacturing revival, potentially pulling business from China. At the same time, you yourself mentioned the threats of robotization, the fact that a lot of knowledge workers too will get redundant. So this seems to be almost the creation of a perfect storm, isn't it?
Well, it may be a perfect storm, but it is the cleverness of the navigator to find the blue waters to be able to take us, because I think that the changing world contours can work in our favor. Even if robotization is gathering pace, it cannot compensate for a very rapidly aging population of Europe, in Japan, and the rising wage rates in China. And I think that therefore our future lies in creating manufacturing hubs, not at the expense of the services sector, because I think this was a false hiatus that China can be the hard power in terms of hardware. India can be the power in terms of the software and other skills. I think we need both. We need both manufacturing and services, and of course very decisively changes in productivity of agriculture.
Right. So I started by asking you about, you know, the vagaries of nature, the impact it's had on agriculture, the current problem, and this sort of exposing the chinks in the armor, so to speak. If you were to look ahead, do you see things sort of improving in the medium term, and then maybe the long term looking bright, or do you see things looking bright even earlier?
But I think that I see things improving right now. I mean, Mr. Jaitley had just spoken to us a few minutes ago. He told us, for instance, that even in the last 3 days, the reviews which he has had, the number of stalled projects, for instance, in highways, which are being defrozen and activated, is a very large number. The number of steps in which some power projects will come on the track much quicker than we had thought. The coal conundrum being solved much earlier. The spectrum conundrum being solved earlier. In terms of the growth rates beginning to look up. So I see very decisive changes in the short run, and I see even more important changes in the medium term as the ease of business decisively improves, as exit conditions of business decisively improve, bankruptcy laws decisively improve, and the enabling overall environment really begins to build virtuous circles behind government's initiative and empowering the states in terms of competitive federalism, not merely cooperative federalism.
That's a warm note to end on. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh.
Thank you. Thank you.